Today's gathering is a vehicle to bring our region's leaders and stakeholders together to prepare and plan for hosting premier sporting events. We first held Region Ready, what seems like eons ago, in 2019, when we were contemplating what major sports events we might bid on, and we were asking ourselves the question, what do we need to do to be ready to successfully host these events in our region? And since then, so exciting to share that Seattle has been awarded 5 NCAA championship events, last year's MLB All-Star Week, this year's NHL Winter Classic, 6 matches of the upcoming 2026 FIFA World Cup, and several other events that we'll be sharing with you today. We have also built the foundation for local organizing committees to plan and implement these events successfully. So think of today as an opportunity to learn about the sporting events we're hosting and consider ideas that may help your businesses and neighborhoods leverage them.
What is the Port doing to prepare for World Cup and all of the events leading up to that?
Well, first of all, we are so excited about the World Cup. When I think of sporting events that excite us as Americans, I always think about the NFL and the Super Bowl, and there's about maybe 100 million people who watch it. And then when we think about soccer and the World Cup, there's about 4 billion people who are watching it and are excited about it, and it's an international affairs. And so it's just such an exciting moment for us. And the Port, there's 3 areas of focus really for us, is preparing our infrastructure and our services, making sure that we are also having strategic partnerships. We are a special purpose government, and so we lean on both federal partnership, local partnerships, partnerships with the city of Seattle to ensure that this is successful. And also when you think about security and safety, that's another area that we are leaning in on, is having strong partnerships. And then also it's completing projects on time. If you have come through SeaTac International Airport in the last couple of months, one of the things you'll see is there's so much construction happening. Has anybody traveled international through the new international arrival facility? It's beautiful, right?
Yes.
You gotta vouch for me. It's beautiful, and that's what we're hoping to do. There are so many projects like that happening at SeaTac International Airport, whether it's our Sea Concourse expansion, whether it's us adding more check points to make sure that people are coming in and out of the airport easy. And then it's our roadways. Today, SeaTac International Airport's roadway was built for about 25 million passengers to come through. We have about 50 million people who are coming through. So expanding those roadways have been an area of focus. And then on the waterfront side, it is making sure that we are showing that we are an international gateway. We have a beautiful waterfront. We're partnering with Friends of the Waterfront, the city of Seattle, and ensuring that when people come, they have this world-class experience.
So, Markham, I know that the city of Seattle and the mayor's office have been very focused on this as well. Can you share a little bit of the priorities around preparing to host World Cup here?
Sure. I echo Hamidi's excitement. I mean, this is going to be the world at our doorstep. It's very, very exciting. We really haven't done something like this as a region before. So preparation is key, and trying to exercise some of those muscles in advance of it to make sure we kind of work out some of the kinks and everybody's on the same page is critical. We're very lucky. You mentioned first impressions. We're so lucky to have such natural beauty here. So Hamdi mentioned the waterfront that's going to be opening. Like, that is just going to blow people's minds. I'm so excited that that's going to be open for the World Cup. I think it's really going to be iconic for us as a city and be a lasting memory for folks that come and visit. But we also need to think about some of the street level experiences. So you mentioned people are going to be flying into SEA, then they're likely or hopefully going to be hopping on the light rail and coming downtown and getting off at one of our downtown stops. So an example of a priority for the city is organizing around some of those multimodal intersections, 3rd and Pike, 3rd and University, 3rd and James, King Street Station, where people are going to have their first kind of experience of the city and making sure that we're having that street level experience be really memorable, really exciting, really welcoming, really safe. We're also trying to orient a lot of our timelines around our downtown activation planning to sync up with the World Cup. So events, activations, festivals, again, trying to flex that muscle, exercise that muscle in advance of inviting the world in. Some of that street level experience, some of the big projects that we'd like to see get done. So trying to just make sure that on a timeline basis, we're all synced up, working together, and that as a city, we've got kind of the relationships and the network built amongst the departments, that it makes it really easy to troubleshoot knowing that it's gonna be a herky-jerky ride between now and then.
Well, and I just have to say how much I appreciate the opportunity for us to partner with OED on bringing other activations to the downtown core before World Cup gets here. So whether there's a number of events leading up to World Cup, and having them feel like a strong presence downtown, even if the event takes place outside of Seattle, bringing that activation downtown is a key part of our priorities at the Sports Commission.
The almighty North Pacific is just the brutal, more challenging ocean in the world.
What makes it tough is that it's long. We're gonna encounter heavy winds and heavy seas, and it's cold. And if I have to use one word for it, it's relentless.
It's an amazing place, but it's relentless and it's harsh.
The Clipper Race is something completely unique. It was founded in 1996 by Sir Robin Knox-Johnson and William Ward. Sir Robin, it's actually his anniversary today, 55 years since he was the first person to sail solo non-stop around the world. So we're celebrating that here today as well. We are an event for everybody. We're the only event of our kind that trains everyday people to become ocean racers, whether that's to sail on one ocean crossing, multiple, or we have over 100 people heading your way who are sailing all around the world on the circumnavigation. It takes 11 months, and Seattle is such an important stop for us on our race route. That is because the North Pacific crossing is known as the big one. It's the longest crossing. The crew are at sea for up to 35 days. Dale's going to tell you a little bit more about what that's like because he's done it himself. And what Seattle really offers us with our partners, Seattle Sports Commission and Port of Seattle, is the warm hospitality that the crew really need. But you sailed here for over 5,000 nautical miles. You've faced conditions. Some of that footage was actually shot from Dale's yacht, the Dare to Lead team. So tell us, what is it like? What does it take to do it?
That video either turned you on or really turned you off. Our crossing of the North Pacific is quite unique in the world of sailing, international world of sailing. There's no other yacht races that cross the North Pacific. We also don't really cross it at the best time of the year because our race around the world is a very fine balance of being in the right places at the right time. And we are very early in the season to cross this incredibly remote part of the world. To give you an idea, it's leaving northern China, a place called Qingdao, heading down around the bottom of Japan. And once you leave Japan behind, you are into nothing for 30 days. The closest person to you is in the International Space Station. There's no help, there's no facilities, there's no support vessel, and it's very long, cold, and hard. But I'm saying a lot of negative things here. Our teams, you'll see when they arrive here, they really have achieved something quite phenomenal, and not phenomenal because they're amateurs, phenomenal even for professional yachtsmen. And you know, for us to come into Seattle is just an incredible welcome. The arrival into Juan de Fuca and down Puget Sound, and then into this incredible bay here. Markham, you said your seafront was so beautiful. You're right, it is. It's absolutely stunning, and the teams, it's quite overwhelming coming into Seattle as a city after such a long, hard, cold, but incredible race, and massive achievement for all of our crew. And also as organizers, we breathe a sigh of relief after the North Pacific, because things get slightly warmer and easier as they head down towards the Panama Canal.
From the blues of the Sound to the greens of Sahalee, we shift our focus to June, when Major Championship Golf returns to King County as the best players in the world take on the majestic course in Sammamish in the KPMG Women's PGA Championship. Here to tee up our next presenter is KPMG Managing Partner and SSC Commissioner Amy Banovich.
Well, I was going to come up here and talk about how difficult the game of golf is, especially the short game, but after seeing that, I'm thinking like there's nothing more difficult than that. Well, thanks for having me here today. When Beth asked me if I would want to come up and talk about this, I said yes, all day, every day I can talk about this. So in 2014, KPMG announced that they would be the title sponsor of the KPMG PGA Women's Golf Championship. And the first location was in New York at Westchester in 2015. The second location in 2016 was Sahalee here in Seattle. And we were such great, warm, welcoming fans that we're coming back again to Seattle, to Sahalee for a second time, and we're the first repeat location.
Sahalee is a little unique in that it's got 3 9-hole courses on the grounds. You'll find a lot of championship courses have 2 18s. Sahalee has 3 9s. For the purpose of our championship, the north and south course will be where the championship golf is played, and the east course is where we'll have fan activations, our vendors set up, and all the other components that go into a major championship. And being quintessential with the Pacific Northwest, there are 4,800 trees found throughout Sahalee's property. So for a golfer like myself, it's torture, because if you hit right, you're doomed. You hit left, you're doomed. But the founders of Sahalee wanted to keep that quintessential Pacific Northwest feel, and the name Sahalee is actually derived from the Chinook language, which means high heavenly ground. And there couldn't be more fitting a title, as we're up high on the plateau. And while we're excited for this year's championship, we can't overlook the past championships that Sahalee has hosted. In 1998, they had the PGA Championship. 2002, they had the NEC World Invitational. In 2010, they had the USGA's US Senior Open. And then in 2016, they had the first edition of the KPMG Women's PGA Championship.
So tell us about some of the strategies that you have used to help your neighborhood businesses take advantage of these events that have come into Kansas City.
So we focus on 3 key words at the Sports Commission. We all have strategic plans. We lean into our strategic words, and that is participate, spectate, and celebrate. We want our community to participate in an event. We want you to get out and do the marathon, get your kids to a sport camp, whatever that looks like, to participate and be active. Then secondly, we want you to spectate. We need you to buy tickets. Right, when you sell these events out, it brings people back, it brings these events out. And then lastly, celebrate. Obviously, we do awards just like you do, and then we have the honor of planning more than one parade for our chiefs and then one for our royals. But Engaging our community is critical to that, and we lean into those 3 words to make sure that we're engaging with our Heartland Black Chamber, with our Hispanic Chamber, with our Asian Chamber, to ask where do we fit the puzzle for them? How are they around the table for us early on, whether it's an event that we own and operate or an event that we're bidding on, to make sure that they're aware of that event could potentially come to our community, or if we're awarded that event, how are they engaged? So we try to, at least once a year, sometimes 3 or 4 times, kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier, making sure that we're presenting to those chambers or those businesses that want to understand how do their members get involved and where that entry is. And the other thing too is when I say participation, we always try and offer scholarships. So for girls from underprivileged areas, we're providing scholarships for them to play a sport or to participate in a camp.
So really giving back to the community. That's awesome. And now, obviously, we often think of hotel room nights. That's the first line of defense when these events come, and that's extremely valuable to us. But there's another aspect of that economic impact, and that is in workforce development. Can you talk a little bit about how workforce development plays into the events that you host?
Well, we know that these sporting events are hospitality events. It's filling our hotel rooms, it's filling the restaurants, it's making sure that Uber is aware. And so on the screen or on our slide we have, it shows you that 1 in 19 local jobs are tied to hospitality, which is really a lot of sports events. Kansas City is a sports city, and we know that we need to make sure we're hiring people, training people, supporting our hotels and our travel industry and tourism industry. So for me, serving as CEO for both organizations, it's kind of that nice connection and tie to that. Both, I report to 2 boards of directors. Don't do that, but it's not a bad thing, but it's complicated because there's different, right? There's different focuses and different outcomes. And so for me, it's really just making sure that everyone's aware of this, and then what are we doing to connect those dots back to workforce development so that they're aware. We work with a lot of our union leaders, and we update them so they know what's coming. The NFL draft was a great example of that. We needed them to build a stage. So they were involved early on with our AFL-CIO to make sure they were around the table so that they were hearing expectations and no one's caught off by surprise.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. What would you pass on as your ideas or inspiration to any neighborhood or business who wants to get engaged with these big events? How do they make the most of that opportunity?
Well, I think it comes back to understanding how critical those 3 words are: participate, spectate, and celebrate, and how do you fit into that puzzle? We don't need 2,000 volunteers at every one of our events, but sometimes for the NFL draft, we needed thousands of volunteers. But what does that mean to a chamber, to our minority coffee shop down the street, and how are they engaged? I would say, don't hesitate to reach out. Like, we're all just here trying to make our cities better, and we need you to ask those questions. Now, can we guarantee that your coffee shop is going to have hundreds of people in line from Venezuela? No. But if you understand that and figure out how you then market, and I've told our city council this a few times, we're really good event planners. We're really good event planners. I'm not really good at marketing that coffee shop. So the expectation of, well, of course, Kathy needs to figure out how to do all this, you can't put that pressure on us. But we're here to answer questions and here to help you and then let you take it from there. Right. So I think that for us, those working groups for World Cup, we're actually starting to do that now more and more with some of our other events, not on the scale of World Cup, but certainly to figure out how are we engaging our community.
That's great, thank you. And I know that our World Cup Local Organizing Committee is doing the same thing, creating these community activation opportunities. So we'll hear more about that. Kathy, thank you so much for making time to be with us. I know you are traveling at least to the Northwest. Kathy came up from Oregon at a conference she was attending. So really appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge and experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
I'm with the local organizing committee. We are a nonprofit created for the sole purpose of preparing our community for hosting the World Cup in 2026. We are really sort of gathered around the spirit of soccer, inclusion, and innovation. It's really important to us and our team that we make two commitments to our region as a part of this organizing. One, that we have a statewide experience for all of Washington, and two, that we are centered and grounding our organizing around legacy and how are we using this moment, this event, to better our community for future generations. This next World Cup that we are going to be a part of is quite literally going to be the largest sporting event in the history of the world. And that's because it's 50% larger than previous World Cups. We are going to be hosting 6 matches. So 4 in the initial group stage, 1 in the round of 32, and 1 in the round of 16. We know between those matches that we are going to have the opportunity to have more than 2 billion viewers on the eyes of Seattle and our region. We are expecting, initial estimates are around 750,000 people will be traveling here for the sole purpose of visiting the World Cup, being either attending the games or being a part of that fan experience.
So when we talk about legacy, we really are organizing around 6 pillars, but the statement from the last slide I think is really important. A lot of the conversation in today's presentation and today's gathering is really focused around opportunity, but we have more than an opportunity to create a legacy. We have a responsibility to take the world's largest event and then focus it and channel that enthusiasm, that visibility, that level of interest to make long-term progress on the things that matter to our community. We want to use the FIFA World Cup in all of its grandeur to make sure that Seattle not only shines for the world, but that Seattle benefits from everything coming here. So when we think about that, we've got 6 pillars, 3 of which we share with all of the local organizing committees. So every host city is organized around human rights, sustainability, and accessibility. A couple just quick, pithy descriptions of what we're looking at with human rights. We're looking about safeguarding and inclusion. So we want for people who are coming to visit our region, for players, for referees, for residents of our community, that this is a safe and inclusive experience. And April mentioned and highlighted 2 really sort of amazing opportunities we have to fuse soccer with that philosophy of safeguarding and inclusion. So first, we're going to have the U.S. men's national team playing its second game on Juneteenth with hundreds of millions of people watching our city. That is a tremendous opportunity and responsibility, not only to make sure that we are centering the right voices and perspectives as we show what Seattle is, but that we also are taking seriously the responsibility to educate the world on what Juneteenth is and what it means to people in our community. So that's, I think, one solid example of something that's going to be a big moment that can last for a lifetime if we're educating the world about such an important holiday, such an important mark on our society as Juneteenth. Second is pride. We have an opportunity to show the world what it looks like in soccer to host games in an inclusive way throughout the whole game without having to call for a pause so that people can stop doing what they're doing. And that's, again, a responsibility that we take seriously. Sustainability. This is another, I'm going to echo something that April said. We have a tremendous asset in our hosting of the games, and that we have at Lumen Field folks who know what they're doing and have been at the forefront of sustainability and running a stadium and running games for a long time. So David, Zach, and the First and Goal team had a chance to go out with Fox 13 the other day while they were filming the way that we sort trash. And as small or seemingly insignificant a detail as that is something that leads the nation, and that we are excited to show the world for how we're going for zero emissions strategies, zero waste strategies, not only in the stadium itself, but then to replicate those strategies out at our FIFA Fan Fests, out at our other activations, so that, again, we're using the occasion of the World Cup to highlight things that work and then spreading that out into the community in a way that inspires ongoing use of those technologies and those approaches. Accessibility. Soccer should be the most accessible sport in Washington. In its most basic form, you need a ball, and you can play by yourself. And so how do we build on that, but then become more expansive? How do we have this be a linguistically and culturally accessible occasion as we have the world visiting Washington? How do we take a look at the way that we are not only fitting out the stadium so that everyone has a chance to come attend and appreciate a game, but then getting that access out into the community so that folks who might not be able to afford a ticket are still able to participate in matches, participate in the benefit of hosting the world's biggest event. Culture, we got a lot to be proud of, and we're going to show that off. And that is both about, again, letting the world see what we're about, but also making sure that our community and our culture here, our individual communities, are benefiting from bringing this event in. And we are excited to put some meat on the bone, as my boss tells me, for how we're actually going to be able to accomplish that and to get in a way that is replicable going forward. And then last, children. The real test of all of this is going to be what today's 8-year-old remembers in 2046. Was this just a thing that caused bad traffic and their parents were upset about this? Or was this an event that showed what sports can do? Sports can inspire and unify in a way that's a little bit too uncommon in our world right now. And we have a chance to take that not only in the context of sports, but then apply that to some of our most difficult, pressing, and important challenges in our community, again, so that we are better for it decades after this.
So where are we in the transportation planning process, and what's next?
Yeah, so it's great to be here. Great to see so many people in the room and so many people who are already part of planning for this. I also heard Leo really throw down the gauntlet there that our job is to make sure that the 8-year-old doesn't remember that their parents were upset about traffic. So we've been really focused on the stadium and right around the stadium right now. Our first submittal to FIFA of the sort of stadium management plan is coming up here in May. And that's really building on all the work that we've done. And we're really so well prepared in so many ways for the events themselves. And we'll talk a little bit about what might be different here and how that affects everything. But then after May, that's when we'll really be turning to those other statewide opportunities and looking at how the Fan Fests start to integrate into cities as well, because so much of the focus is often on the match itself, but the opportunities are really in leveraging that statewide.
Great, thank you. And so Kinley Horn has a ton of experience with mega events across the country, but also here specifically in Seattle. And I know you guys were pretty involved in the planning for transportation around the All-Star Game. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the innovative strategies you used there that you think would be replicable here, or things you wish that you had had time and now we have 2 years? So what should we be thinking about?
Yeah, so all last summer we talked about how All-Star Week was a dress rehearsal, sort of first opportunity to try out some of the things, and it was by and large so successful. We saw so many people come down and enjoy the area around Lumen Field and around T-Mobile Park. And we tried things like the red carpet event at Pike Place Market, which all these things were challenging. Those activations are always a little bit challenging. How are people going to do them? How are they going to come and enjoy that? But we really saw so many different things. King County Metro tried out some new shuttle services to get people to and from downtown, and we learned a lot about sort of how people use those, how many people used micromobilities, bike share, scooter share to come down to the stadiums, and where we might need to start to plan for more space for those activities, more visibility for new transit service that people aren't as used to taking. In a couple of years, we're entering into this really exciting time in the region for transit expansion too. Link to Linwood in a couple months, Link starting imminently on the east side, and by 2026 we're going to have this much more connected region, as well as sort of finishing out all the construction that's underway on the waterfront. And there's just so many ways for people to get around and sort of enjoy match day and the Fan Fest and all those experiences without needing to drive and try to park and get that 8-year-old frustrated. I heard earlier, and this is a theme that comes through over and over again, is explaining to people what to expect. But also, we want to make sure that we are encouraging people to come and stay and enjoy. And our sort of default playbook often on what to do is, if you don't have to travel, don't. But I think we want to flip that script a little bit and encourage people to come, enjoy the neighborhoods around Lumen Field, enjoy those fan fests, and take the most advantage of this. And so that'll take some alternative muscles in terms of how we communicate.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you, Kimberly Horn.
So one thing I really want to kind of highlight a little bit is this thing called a SEER event. It's the Special Event Assessment Rating Methodology. And this was created under DHS for all large events, right? And the reason we create these is to rate each of these events as a measure to the risks of a terrorist attack at a special event. So a lot of these events within Washington is nominated through the Washington State Fusion Center. If anyone wants more information about that, come see me afterwards and I can make that introduction. Some things we're used to, right? That SEER nominations, we hear about day in, day out. Super Bowl, the Tournament of Rose Parade, Indianapolis 500, the Boston Marathon that just occurred, right? These are things where a lot of times these get high ratings, and therefore the federal government comes in with different federal support. In regards to Seattle, we have over 15 agencies that are itching to support this World Cup. Like everyone else here, right? We want to see the World Cup come to our state, right? Because we want to make sure that it's not just a Seattle-centric event, it is a statewide event. And so right now, a few of those agencies include Secret Service, FBI, TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA. You also have Federal Aviation, the National Weather Service, right? These are all federal departments. As a federal coordinator, and one will be designated for this event, their role is to align all the federal agencies to support the locals in their planning effort. And back to you.
Thank you, Alan. And so going from the federal space, you know, it obviously major events and sporting events happen all of the time. It is not as frequent that we have as many simultaneous events happening across our state or nation or continent. And so going from federal level, zooming in all the way down to Seattle, I want to introduce Captain Sean Stevens with the Seattle Police Department.
The month of March, a team traveled to the United Kingdom to observe how the British manage their soccer crowds over there. That was a really great trip. We were escorted by two professors from the UK who are experts in crowd management and crowd safety. And while we were over there, we were able to observe 4 professional soccer matches and see how the police there manage those crowds. And the British have been doing this for obviously a very long time. They're very good at it. And they have developed a program that they call Enable, which is what they refer to as police dialoguing. And they have teams of officers who go out into the crowds, out among the fans as they're coming into the stadium. They engage with fans. They they try to identify groups that they think are going to be problematic. They contact those groups. They lay out rules and let them know what they can and can't do. And they try to encourage those groups to self-regulate. That program has worked very well for them in a sporting context. And so we're implementing that here in Seattle. We have a program that we're calling the POET program, which is Police Outreach Engagement Team. But it's modeled after that program that the British use, as well as a similar team that the Columbus, Ohio police use. So we've been doing that. We've been laying the foundation here in Seattle. We've been talking to our counterparts in the other police departments on the West Coast that are part of the Western region, and that includes Vancouver, British Columbia, Santa Clara, California, which is, it's called, on the map it says San Francisco, but Santa Clara is actually where the stadium is, and in Los Angeles the stadium is actually in Inglewood. So we've reached out to those departments. We're working with our counterparts in those agencies. we're sharing information, we're comparing notes and seeing what they're doing to prepare, making sure that we're all not missing anything. There's a lot of information that we still don't know about. We don't know about the venues. We're most interested in finding out where the fan festival will be. And then once we find out where those venues are, we'll start the process of tailoring security packages for those specific venues.
A lot of amazing content. I sit in these meetings on a planning basis, and I'm always blown away by how much work goes into it, but to hear it synthesized like this just really gets you excited about all the things we're doing as a city. So thank you, Beth. Thank you to the Sports Commission for putting this together. So I'll be pretty brief here because I think so much of what I would have said has already been said. I heard a lot of excitement in this room. I heard a lot of energy. I heard talk about collaboration, about legacy, and if nothing else, I'm not going to forget that clip around the world video because that was terrifying. But it did make me think, though, when I was watching that video, I was like, why do people do this, right? But I think it's because, people, they want to set a goal. They want to accomplish something great in life. And they know they're going to do something difficult, and they're going to have choppy waves, and I'm also sure all sorts of other very difficult challenges. But they do it anyway because at the end of the day, they'll be better off. And if I had to sum up why we're in this room today, it's for the same reason. It's because we believe Seattle is a great city, and we can do great things together. And so we know sometimes taking on these things can be daunting, talking about billions of viewers on your city, but that's okay, because we're working together to make sure we're successful in that. And so I really appreciate that video, and I will keep it in mind. And I'm glad that you all are in the same boat with the city of Seattle as we navigate those waters. I also think a lot about how we as a city government in particular, we work really hard to try to be proactive rather than reactive. Often we're caught in reactive situations, but we want to be proactive in building the city we want to be. The city we want to be for ourselves, for our parents, for our children, for our neighbors. And we can only do that if we get together and we talk about issues and we plan them out. While sports are amazing, I love sports as something that I personally enjoy, I know it's actually not for everybody in the city. But to me, that actually doesn't matter. Because when we put on events like this, when we talk about FIFA World Cup, or we talk about the PGA Tour, we're talking about creating more than just sports events. We're talking about creating opportunities for our arts and cultural organizations to shine through, creating opportunities for our communities, our neighborhoods, our small businesses to be able to share in that success. We're talking about the ability to create civic pride around this city in a way that maybe we haven't seen since that 1962 World's Fair. But that's what we're working on every day, to make it a shared success, to make it a lasting legacy, and at the end of the day, to be able to make Seattle shine on the global stage, not only for all the external people, but for every single one of us sitting in this room today. So thank you for being part of that. My challenge to all of you sitting here is to just ask yourself, how can you be part of it? How can you contribute? What can you offer to be part of it? Because together, we'll be able to create something amazing. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Region Ready.